The Pope possessed knowledge of the concealed portion of the Fatima secret, a part that has remained undisclosed. You are on the verge of uncovering information that will fundamentally reshape your understanding of a significant religious mystery. What I am about to share has been kept hidden for decades, protected within Vatican walls and by those who fear the repercussions of these revelations. In 1917, 3 Portuguese children received messages that profoundly impacted the religious world. However, the complete third secret of Fatima was never revealed. The official version, released by the Vatican in 2000, describes a bishop in white being murdered. Yet, numerous cardinals, bishops, and even later popes displayed a noticeable apprehension when discussing this secret. John Paul I, after reading the original content, waited over 20 years before authorizing a partial disclosure. Cardinal Ratzinger, prior to becoming Pope Benedict XVI, showed visible unease when questioned about the matter. Sister Lucia, the only visionary to live to adulthood, maintained a troubling silence regarding specific details until her death. In rare moments of openness, she offered enigmatic phrases such as "Will many be lost?" and "Nations disappear?" What could these words truly mean? The evidence I have gathered reveals clear discrepancies between the original documents and the publicly released information. Living witnesses still possess privileged access to information that has never reached the public. In the coming minutes, you will encounter evidence, documents, and testimonies that have been systematically suppressed. Some will argue against bringing these revelations to light, while others will attempt to discredit what I am about to share. However, you deserve to know the complete truth, not merely the carefully selected fragments that have been made public. What you choose to do with this information is entirely up to you. Imagine an ordinary afternoon in 1917, in the small town of Fatima, Portugal. 3 children were tending sheep when an extraordinary event occurred. Lucia dos Santos, 10, and her cousins Francisco and Jacinta Mato, 9 and 7, reported the first of 6 apparitions that would forever alter their lives. The world was at war, famine ravaged Europe, and suddenly, 3 peasant children became the focal point of one of the 20th century's most significant religious revelations. What many fail to grasp is the profound transformation these children underwent after the apparitions. Witnesses at the time noted a significant change in their demeanor. From joyful and carefree children, they became serious and focused. Francisco and Jacinta passed away a few years later, as predicted by the apparition, the official cause being the Spanish flu. However, recently discovered documents raise unsettling questions about the true nature of their deaths. Before their passing, both recounted terrifying visions about humanity's future. Francisco, in turn, spent hours in silent prayer, stating only that he needed to console our Lord, who was deeply saddened. From his deathbed, he repeatedly said, "If people knew what was going to happen." These accounts were meticulously documented by priests and doctors of the time, yet many of these documents mysteriously vanished from the Vatican archives. What did these children witness that changed them so drastically? Why were 2 of them taken so young, while Lucia lived until 2005, under constant ecclesiastical surveillance? The original medical records of Francisco and Jacinta, which I accessed through privileged sources, reveal unexplained anomalies, symptoms that do not entirely align with the typical presentation of Spanish flu. Religious authorities at the time ordered these records to be sealed and placed in restricted archives. Why? What did these documents contain that could not be made public? The truth is that what these children witnessed was so profound, so disturbing, that it completely altered their perception of reality. And you must prepare yourself, because what follows will challenge everything you thought you knew about this event that transformed the faith of millions. When the Vatican finally revealed the supposed third secret in 2000, it presented a text describing an apocalyptic vision of a bishop in white being killed. However, a crucial element was missing. All previous accounts, including testimony from Cardinal Ottaviani, who read the original document in the 1960s, mentioned a single-page text containing 25 lines. What was presented to the world differed significantly in structure and content. The original envelope, sealed by Sister Lucia herself in 1944, contained explicit instructions to open it only after 1960, stating that at that time it will become clearer. Pope John XXIII opened the envelope in 1959 and, after reading its contents, decided not to reveal it. 4 subsequent popes maintained the same silence. It is a coincidence that after 1960, we witnessed unprecedented changes within the Church and society. Sources close to the Vatican confirm the existence of 2 distinct envelopes, one containing the apocalyptic vision revealed in 2000 and another containing the exact words of the Virgin Mary explaining that vision. This second text, often referred to as the fourth secret, has not been made public. Cardinal Siri, who served as a personal theologian to 5 popes, reportedly stated that the third secret reveals, among other things, that a significant apostasy within the Church would originate at the highest levels. According to leaked internal documents, senior Vatican officials held differing views regarding the complete disclosure of this secret. A confidential memo, which I obtained through anonymous sources within the Roman Curia, expresses apprehension that revealing its full contents could destabilize the faith of millions and lead to widespread panic. Another document purportedly mentions specific predictions that, if made public, might be interpreted as deterministic and contrary to the concept of human free will. The exact content of this hidden text remains unknown. The reasons why individuals of deep faith, devoted to divine truth, would seemingly agree that certain aspects of this revelation should remain concealed are complex. The available evidence suggests that these are specific, rather than purely symbolic, predictions that some believe may be unfolding in the present moment. This perspective underscores the urgency some feel regarding the need to understand the complete truth. In 1981, Pope John Paul II survived an assassination attempt that occurred on May 13, the anniversary of the first Fatima apparition. Following his recovery, the Pope made a pilgrimage to Fatima and stated, "I am still here because a maternal hand guided the trajectory of the bullet." Reportedly, after reading the full text of the third secret, John Paul II initiated a prayer vigil in St. Peter's Square, specifically to avert a perceived imminent catastrophe for humanity. The latter part of his papacy was characterized by increasingly frequent and urgent warnings about the signs of the times. His personal diaries, which some researchers have recently accessed, reportedly contain anguished references to unprecedented trials and a necessary, but painful purification. In one particularly unsettling entry, he purportedly wrote, "How can I warn them without revealing what I promised to keep secret? How can I prepare them for what is to come?" Benedict XVI, while still Cardinal Ratzinger, served as the prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith when the official version of The Secret was released. In a 2016 interview, after becoming Pope Emeritus, he made an intriguing statement: "There is only one secret, but perhaps not all of its aspects have been fully understood." The current Pope has also shown a notable connection to Fatima. In the first year of his papacy, he consecrated the world to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, fulfilling a specific request from the apparitions. Observers have noted his frequent incorporation of phrases from the Fatima messages into his speeches, particularly those concerning the purification of faith and perseverance during times of tribulation. The consistent concern shared by these three distinct pontiffs appears to center on the core themes potentially contained within the unrevealed secret: a crisis of faith within the Church, social upheavals of unprecedented scale, and a sense of urgency regarding the need for spiritual preparation. The available evidence suggests that these individuals carried the burden of knowledge they deemed both vital and perilous. This knowledge, according to some interpretations of current events, seems to be manifesting in our time. Sister Lucia reportedly indicated that the final secret included warnings about crises of faith and morals that would impact both the Church and the world. Examining religious attendance statistics over the past 60 years reveals a decline in church attendance. The number of individuals in monasteries and seminaries, particularly in regions with historically high Catholic populations. This significant decrease began around 1960, the year The Secret was initially meant to be revealed. The purported exact words of the apparition, as recorded in Lucia's diaries, are said to include references to nations that will disappear. Considering the geopolitical shifts of recent decades, such as the dissolution of the Soviet Union, alluded to in earlier parts of The Secret, ethnic and religious conflicts leading to altered borders, and growing instability in specific regions. Some believe these align with frighteningly precise predictions in the original documents, which remain largely inaccessible to the public. Experts in Mariology suggest that unusual weather patterns align with signs mentioned in the original visions. This ultimate promise is portrayed as more than a spiritual or symbolic concept. It describes a tangible transformation of human reality. The text apparently speaks of a civilization rooted in love, emerging from the remnants of the old world, characterized by an unprecedented balance between the spiritual and material aspects of existence. This is not depicted as an unattainable ideal, but as a genuine flourishing of human potential when finally aligned with a divine purpose. Notably, there is a reference to scientific advancements that will validate ancient truths, leading to a new synthesis of faith and reason. This reconciliation is presented as a resolution to long-standing human dilemmas, paving the way for an integrated development that respects both the transcendent and immanent dimensions of human experience. In the social sphere, the manuscript purportedly describes a fundamental restructuring of power and resource distribution, not through violent upheaval or imposed ideologies, but through a transformation of hearts that will naturally manifest in just institutions. The economy, politics, education, and culture are all described as undergoing a renewal that will preserve the best of the past while overcoming its limitations. Relations between nations are also depicted as being transformed in this final vision. The text apparently speaks of the end of old animosities and the rise of a true global community, united not by imperial dominance or forced conformity, but by mutual respect and a shared commitment to universal values grounded in transcendent truth. More profoundly, the manuscript describes a new relationship with the material world. The promise includes a renewal of the earth, where harmony between humanity and nature will be restored. This is not presented as a regression to a primitive state, but as truly responsible stewardship, facilitated by technologies that work in cooperation with, rather than against, natural processes. The most extraordinary aspect of this final promise is its timescale. Unlike many apocalyptic prophecies that foresee the near end of human history, the Fatima manuscript apparently describes this coming period not as the conclusion, but as a new beginning, an era of authentic development that will realize possibilities previously only glimpsed by the most insightful prophets and visionaries. Therefore, what is at stake is not merely surviving a crisis, but consciously participating in a decisive turning point in human history. The choices made now, even amidst increasing confusion and tribulation, are not simply defensive, but fundamentally creative, planting the seeds for a renewed civilization that will emerge when the present challenges subside. This is the true message that those privy to the complete secret have attempted to convey, not just warnings of impending danger, but a vision of hope that surpasses our fears and limited perspectives. A vision that, if correctly understood, does not induce panic or despair, but a calm resolve to be part of the significant transition already underway in our world. What will you do with this knowledge? This remains the crucial question. The answer will determine not only your own destiny, but also your involvement in the extraordinary unfolding drama around us. A drama whose final act was partially revealed over a century ago, in the hills of Fatima, to 3 shepherd children, who could scarcely grasp the significance of what was entrusted to them. "You who will no longer be recognizable," was one of the enigmatic phrases attributed to the apparition. The increasing frequency of extreme weather events is not solely attributable to known environmental factors, but aligns with a specific pattern outlined in the prophecies. Even more concerning are the signs within the Church itself. The third secret, according to those who access the original text, spoke of a bishop against another bishop, a cardinal against another cardinal. The internal divisions currently being witnessed, with ecclesiastical factions in open conflict over fundamental doctrinal questions, were predicted with unsettling accuracy. Modern technology was also seemingly foreseen. References to media that will captivate millions and to images that will hypnotize even the elect appear to describe with frightening precision the effects of social networks and virtual reality that dominate our time. These parallels are not mere coincidences or strained interpretations. They are direct correspondences between the described visions and the reality we are experiencing. We are witnessing in real time the unfolding of prophecies deemed too disturbing to reveal. Alarmingly, indicators suggest that we are only at the beginning of the process described in the original messages. Over the decades, numerous individuals with privileged access to the original documents or conversations with Sister Lucia have attempted to speak out, only to be systematically silenced or discredited. Father Fuentes, who interviewed Lucia in 1957, made public some concerning details from their conversations. Shortly after, he was removed from his position, and his statements were officially questioned. Newly discovered documents confirm the accuracy of Father Fuentes' account, though his reputation had already suffered. Cardinal Ottaviani, after reading the original manuscript, publicly mentioned that it contained elements that could cause panic if revealed prematurely. Following this unguarded statement, he never spoke publicly about the matter again. Sources close to him indicate that he was specifically instructed to maintain complete silence. In his private memoirs, found after his death, he wrote, "I carry a burden that I cannot share, out of obedience and for the greater good of the faithful." Adding to the mystery are the experiences of several Vatican officials who worked in the archives where the original document was kept. 3 of them, at different times, requested immediate transfers after encountering the material. One of these individuals, whose name I will keep confidential for their protection, confided in me, stating, "What I saw fundamentally changed my understanding, not only of the faith, but of contemporary history itself." There are connections there that, if widely known, would alter public perception of crucial events of the 20th century. The case of Sister Lucia herself is particularly intriguing. After entering the Carmelite convent, her public appearances became extremely rare and were always accompanied by official Vatican representatives. Her correspondence was rigorously controlled. Serious researchers have raised questions about potential inconsistencies in her handwriting and linguistic expressions across different periods. Some even suggest that during certain public appearances in the 1990s, the individual might not have been the real Lucia. More recently, a nurse who cared for Lucia in her final days reported that the visionary often awoke distressed, muttering, "It's not too late, but time is almost up." When asked about the meaning of these words, Lucia simply replied, "You will see for yourself." These witnesses, in moments of vulnerability or awareness, offer us glimpses into what remains concealed. Their stories, when pieced together, form a disturbing picture that supports the suspicion that what we officially know is only a small part of the truth. The true significance of the third secret of Fatima can only be fully appreciated when its parallels with other Marian prophecies recognized by the Church are considered. In La Salette, France, in 1846, the apparition gave specific warnings about the Church being eclipsed and Rome losing the faith. In Akita, Japan, in 1973, the message warned of cardinal against cardinal, and fire falling from the sky. The language bears a striking resemblance to the descriptions in the original Fatima manuscript. There appears to be a consistent pattern in these modern Marian apparitions. Each one seems to expand upon and clarify aspects of what was revealed at Fatima. Significantly, these connections only became apparent after 1960, the year in which the third secret was supposed to have been revealed. Is this a coincidence, or a divine attempt to ensure that the essential message was conveyed despite official silence? The prophecies of Saint Malachi concerning the popes, documented since the 11th century, describe the current period as the time of the end of the Church, as we know it. His description of the final papacy bears an eerie resemblance to the conditions we are witnessing today. Serious theologians, not merely sensationalist apocalypticists, have noted these troubling correspondences. Newly translated manuscripts by Blessed Bartolo Longo, who lived in the 19th century, contain references to 3 secrets that will be revealed when the world is on the brink of the abyss, and a council that will bring both light and darkness. These statements were written decades before the apparitions of Fatima and the Second Vatican Council, yet they describe central elements of both with unsettling accuracy. Particularly significant are the prophecies of Saint John Bosco, who had visions of a great battle during which the Church's boat would be attacked from all sides. He foresaw a period when the faithful would be confused about where to find the truth. These visions, documented long before Fatima, contain specific elements that correspond exactly to the unrevealed parts of the third secret, as reported by those who had access to the original text. This interconnectedness of prophecies from different times and places, converging on our specific historical moment, cannot be mere coincidence. It suggests a consistent divine warning, repeated and amplified over time, culminating in the final revelations of Fatima, revelations that, for reasons we are now beginning to understand, were deemed too explosive for full disclosure. The evidence I have compiled points to an unavoidable conclusion. The third secret contains specific predictions about a radical transformation within the Church, not just external or disciplinary changes, but a fundamental crisis of doctrine and authority. The cardinal, who read the original manuscript, inadvertently confirmed this. In the third secret, it was reportedly predicted that a significant apostasy within the Church would begin at its highest levels. This extraordinary claim by a papal theologian suggests something almost unimaginable. Sources within the Vatican corroborate that the original text describes a time when many in prominent positions will lose their faith while remaining in their roles. The consequences of this are described as widespread confusion among the faithful, who will be uncertain about whom to follow or trust. This disorientation is portrayed not as a singular event, but as a gradual process already underway. Particularly concerning is the purported reference to liturgical changes that will strip worship of its supernatural essence. This specific phrase, cited by multiple independent sources who had access to the document, seems to describe developments that many observers recognize in the contemporary Church. The prediction reportedly goes on to explain how outward forms will be maintained while the inner substance gradually diminishes, leading to a situation where what was once considered sacred will appear commonplace. The document apparently details how this transformation will occur not through external attacks, but through well-intentioned adaptations and attempts to make the faith relevant to the modern world. The result, according to sources who have seen the original text, will be a church unrecognizable to previous generations, despite retaining its traditional structures externally. Even more unsettling is the alleged prediction of a deep division between those who adhere to the apostolic tradition and those who embrace the spirit of the world. This division is not presented as a mere theological disagreement, but as a fundamental rupture that will affect all levels of the ecclesiastical hierarchy, from the highest cardinals to local parishes. However, the hidden message reportedly does not end with this troubling vision. It also includes a promise of unexpected renewal, which will emerge when the situation appears most dire. This renewal will significantly originate not primarily from the hierarchy, but from small groups of the faithful who have preserved the authentic tradition during the period of confusion. One of the most controversial and suppressed aspects of the original secret is the alleged reference to a specific timeline. Multiple sources who had access to the manuscript mention a sequence of events and a period of tribulation with defined time markers. Sister Lucia, in a rare uncensored interview, mentioned that everything would occur during the 20th century and a little beyond. This statement, made in the 1950s, suggests that we are now living in the period described as the peak of the crisis. The manuscript apparently identifies three distinct phases. The first, described as infiltration and preparation, would roughly correspond to the years 1960 to 1990. The second phase, called manifestation and acceleration, would cover the period from 1990 to 2000. The third and most intense phase, termed culmination and resolution, would begin in our present time. Particularly significant is the alleged reference to a convergence of spiritual, moral, economic, and geopolitical crises reaching their peak simultaneously. This convergence pattern was previously considered unlikely by many analysts, yet we have witnessed precisely this phenomenon in recent years with increasing intensity. There are also unsettling references to specific celestial phenomena described as signs in the sky that will precede the climax. Astronomers have noted unusual planetary configurations and solar phenomena that bear an uncanny resemblance to the descriptions contained in the original text. The correlation between these astronomical events and the specific world developments mentioned in The Secret is statistically significant enough to suggest more than mere coincidence. More specifically, the manuscript apparently contains references to a final period of purification, which would be preceded by 2 world wars, followed by a third conflagration. This latest conflict is described not as a conventional war, but as a clash of civilizations that will transform the face of the earth and the structures of human society. The chronology culminates with what is described as a great sign visible to all, after which a definitive intervention will take place, establishing a period of peace, as promised in the initial messages of Fatima. The exact nature of this sign and intervention remains a subject of intense debate among the few who have had access to the full text. However, the description suggests something of unprecedented magnitude in human history. Russia holds a central place in the messages of Fatima. The part already revealed mentions the need for Russia to be consecrated to the Immaculate Heart of Mary to prevent it from spreading its errors throughout the world. What remains largely unknown is the much more complex and multifaceted role attributed to Russia in the entirety of the Third Secret. According to sources who had access to the full document, Russia is described not only as a threat, but also, paradoxically, as an essential part of the eventual resolution. The text apparently foretells a surprising reversal. The nation that once spread error will ultimately become an instrument of renewal. This transformation is described as occurring after significant suffering and an internal change that will fundamentally alter the nation's character. Intriguingly, there is a reference to a specific Russian leader who will initially appear as an adversary, but will ultimately pave the way for restoration. This figure is depicted as someone with a strong hand and ambiguous intentions, who will nevertheless inadvertently play a role in the divine plan. Careful observers have noted unsettling parallels between this description and recent geopolitical developments. The text also reportedly mentions a specific conflict involving Russia and the West, which will seem to lead to disaster, but paradoxically, will create the conditions for final reconciliation. This conflict is described as having both military and ideological dimensions, with profound implications for the global balance of power. Most significantly, the manuscript apparently contains a prediction that when all human efforts fail and the danger seems insurmountable, the unexpected conversion of this nation will bring about a resolution that no one could have foreseen. This conversion is described not only in religious terms, but also as a fundamental reorientation of values and priorities with global implications. The Russian Orthodox Church also reportedly plays a crucial role in this prophetic narrative. The document supposedly speaks of a reunification of the churches of East and West that will begin in Russia and spread, healing a schism of almost 1,000 years. This reconciliation is described as one of the main fruits of the promised period of peace, representing a restoration of Christian unity lost since the Great Schism of 1054. These revelations about Russia's role represent one of the most surprising and potentially revolutionary aspects of the full secret, defying simplistic interpretations and offering a much more nuanced view of God's plan for our time. Given the evidence presented thus far, a crucial question arises: how should we prepare for the events that appear to be unfolding? The original manuscript, according to multiple sources, offers not only warnings, but also specific guidance for those who will live through this critical period. The first principle of preparedness mentioned is the need for discernment amidst confusion. The text apparently warns that many voices will claim to have the answer, but that true guidance will come through a return to the authentic sources of faith. This is described not as mere traditionalism, but as a rediscovery of the original essence that transcends superficial divisions. A second crucial element is the development of resilient communities. The manuscript supposedly describes how, during the period of greatest tribulation, small groups of believers united by the truth will serve as islands of stability in a sea of confusion. These communities are characterized not by isolation, but by their ability to preserve and transmit essential values while remaining engaged with the wider world. Material preparation is also addressed, but in a balanced way. The document apparently warns against both materialism that denies the spiritual dimension and spiritualism that neglects practical needs. The advice offered is to develop moderate self-reliance and mutual support systems that can withstand social and economic disruptions. Particularly emphasized is the importance of solid intellectual training. The text supposedly predicts a time when truth will be relativized and fundamental knowledge will be forgotten. As an antidote, it recommends a conscious effort to preserve and transmit both ancient wisdom and validated knowledge, creating a synthesis that can serve as a basis for cultural renewal. On a spiritual level, the manuscript apparently emphasizes specific practices that will take on special importance during this period: regular and deep prayer, familiarity with Scripture, Eucharistic devotion, frequent reconciliation, and a special relationship with Mary as a guide through the storm. These practices are described not as mere rituals, but as vital sources of insight and inner strength. Finally, there is an apostolic dimension to preparation. The text apparently speaks of a serene, but fearless testimony that will be necessary. Those who understand the signs of the times are called not to retreat in fear, but to be light in the growing darkness, helping others find guidance and hope when conventional systems of meaning and security begin to crumble. Despite the gravity of the predicted events, the original manuscript of the third secret ends, according to all reliable sources, with an extraordinary promise. This is not a minor addendum, but the true climax and purpose of the entire revelation. After the period of tribulation will come a transformation of unprecedented magnitude, described as a new Pentecost, which will renew the face of the earth.